So we're live now. Hello everyone who are watching there. I'm glad you're here or watching in the future. Some people like to watch it after. Here with us we have Laura and she's from Spain. I'm really glad she's here. Thank you very much for joining us. And I
Thank-
will give you now a bit of time to say who is Laura?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Um, I think this is like a great initiative, and that you're taking your time to contact people and to make people know about other cultures. It's
Hmm.
quite interesting, and I'm very happy to participate in this. Who am I? Well, my name is, as Ricardo said, I'm Laura. I'm from Spain. I was born in Salamanca, not in Madrid, but I actually live in Madrid. I'm from Spain, but I lived uh, in other places throughout my life. I lived 5 years in Costa Rica, 3 years
Hmm.
in Panama, then 1 year in the UK, and I came back here to Spain. And so I've been here studying my aerospace degree. I finished. I did my master's degree as well here in business, a completely different field.
Hmm.
And now I'm working here since 3 years ago almost. And that's what I'm doing currently, being here studying and working.
And what do you do apart from studying and working?
I
Or
have many
did you used to
hobbies.
do in your childhood or whatever?
Well, right now I have my main hobbies, which are like watching series, Netflix, everything with my mom. I love spending time with her. Also with my friends, and now after post COVID,
Hmm.
now that we can, we're having much fun because we can get together 10 people maximum, and we're
Hmm.
like making barbecues or whatever just to get like that time that we wasted
Yeah.
without seeing each other. We're recovering the time. And then I also like doing sports. I like very much riding my bike. I have one here, which is like a spinning bike,
Yeah.
and I like to ride around, with my bike. And that's much of what I like to do in my day-to-day basis, to say so.
Okay. And if you were talking with a foreigner, uh, how or what would you say, or how was it to grow up in Spain? Yeah.
I had a lot of fun when I was a little kid here in Spain. We lived in another place, which is not Madrid. It's called Valladolid, which is like 2 hours north
Mm-hmm.
of Madrid. And I remember my house was like in a small condo. So all my friends, they were like my age or my brother's age, which is 2 years below me.
Mm-hmm.
And we had lots of fun because every day we went outside. Our parents weren't afraid because we were inside the condo. We couldn't get out, and so we spent all the time there. It was like 10 hours just playing and playing. And I remember our parents calling us like Laura, and you will go to your house to have lunch, and then right after lunch you went outside again. So we had that childhood that everything was outside. We loved playing with our friends. So it was like a very happy childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, when you go outside with your parents, etc., to I don't know, to maybe when they went to a bar or to a restaurant or whatever, it was very safe. So you went around and playing and doing whatever, and there was nothing to worry about, So that was quite that was super cool, and we had much fun. Yeah, it was amazing actually.
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
Great. And what there were any special family traditions that you remember with a bit of how would I say um, happy for what you lived in those times with your family? Like, do Spain have any special days appointed to family and to spend time with your family?
Um, yes, we do. We actually have Reyes, which is Reyes Magos, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the translation of that, but let's say it's like Santa Claus, but in Spain we call it the Reyes Magos, which is translated to Magic Kings.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
act. and that's on January. And normally, what we do is on the 6th of January we get together, and we eat this traditional thing which is called roscon.
Hmm.
It's sweet and it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm looking forward to it like the whole year. And we normally get together all the family, and you get together with with your dad's side of the family, with your mom's side of the family. Sometimes you go to lunch with one family and dinner to the other. And I remember that you went there and they will give you all the presents from one side and then from the other, and you will be like so happy that you're getting presents from everywhere. So it was that's like the day you're looking forward to. And nowadays that I'm older, of course, it's also a day I'm looking forward to the whole year,
Hmm.
because it's a very like nice day. You feel happy. You feel
Yeah.
happy you're with. It's like a very special day here. And although people are doing more and more Santa Claus, because school here in Spain, it starts the 8th of January. So, kids don't have that much time to play with their new presents.
Hmm.
Uh, they're starting to doing it on the 25th, to get the presents on the 25th of December. But still, although they're doing that, uh, the 6th of January is still the day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's an interesting thing about the Christmas celebration. So I live in Portugal, so I'm pretty close to Spain. So I've always heard about your tradition of doing that on the 6th of January, and
yeah,
the kings will come to the streets walking on top of, I don't know if it's camels or whatever, and delivering
yeah,
presents to the kids. I've always heard about it.
yeah,
And one thing I enjoyed when I came to the Netherlands, I already made a video about that, is
yeah,
they have their own tradition which is different from yours and different from how the Americans celebrate it, and that diffused a little bit around the world, that Santa Claus thing. They have the Saint Nicholas that comes from Spain, which is fun,
yeah,
with some helpers, and goes there on, I think it's the 5th of December, to deliver presents to the kids.
yeah,
Uh, and I found it fun because I knew how we celebrated in Portugal, which normally we have a Christmas dinner at the 24th of December with the whole family, or with part of the family, because we can spend a day with half the family on the Christmas night at the 24th, and then the other half of the family on the 25th on the Christmas day, so it depends.
yeah.
But normally we had a big dinner. I've always loved the food from that time of the year, like the Christmas dinner and the Christmas lunch. It's really good food. So good memories, not only for being with the family, but as well to have good food and to receive a lot of presents in the 24th at night. We here in Portugal normally do it at midnight, between the 24th and the 25th. Like
It's
I've seen the movies that in America they do a similar thing, but they receive the presents on the 25th in the morning, so it's different. In Spain, you guys do it at the 6th of January, and I found in the Netherlands it's in the 5th of December for the kids. They repeat a similar thing on the 25th for the adults. But I found it fun, all these differences of the same thing in the end. So, so yeah,
yeah. That's right. Everyone gets the presents on different days.
yeah.
But yeah, it's quite funny. Also, I think family tradition also plays a role there. My family has never given me presents at night. At
Mm-hmm.
midnight. It's always been the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I know people that actually get their presents at midnight here. It's so weird,
Yeah,
but the tradition is at the next day. In the morning.
exactly.
Mhm.
Maybe I would like to ask you a little bit of Spain's history, and what do you like, a part of Spain's history that you like a lot and would like to share.
What's a part of the Spanish history? Wow. Uh, there's there's so many. Like history here in Spain is crazy because you have so many events, so many things that have been going on. Um, but oof. Well, actually, I can take like two events, um, which I really like, but because of the, let's say, closeness with my life,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense. I mean, for example, when Christopher Columbus went to to America.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I lived there in Panama and Costa Rica, I remember that I was 10 years old when I went there, and the first thing I learned about history was this part of like the discovering of America, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was the first time I was like listening to history and everything, and it was there, and it was with Spain. So I was like extremely happy about learning all this stuff about how Christopher Columbus, instead of going to India, went to America,
Yeah.
and everything over, the years, how they went into each country and everything, and it was quite interesting, not only to know the Spanish part of the history, but also their side of the story. Um, I learned how they were, and it was I don't know how to say the word, but it was super interesting because you could feel that they were kind of like angry at the Spanish people for how they treated them
Mm-hmm.
uh, in centuries ago.
Yeah.
Uh, so they were actually like they looked at you like you're the enemy, and I was like, I'm sorry, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes they said like a little thing like like I remember that one of my friends, he told me like bring me back my gold, like,
Yeah.
no, well, give me my mirrors. I don't know, like we can have this conversation like what you gain from us and what we gain from you. So that was quite interesting, and it's a part of the history that's actually because it's the clash of two cultures, and how in the past, you know we actually went crazy and we conquered it all, and how we treated them, it's crazy. And you watch documentaries, you only had to read books to understand what it was.
Yeah.
So I really loved to learning that part of the history in America, because you get the two sides of the story. My
Yeah.
mom, whom she told me like her side, or what she learned when she was at school, and you get to see that there's uh, it's similar, but there's two sides of the story, as,
Yeah.
as everything. And the other part of history that I really like is everything that has to do with the Spanish Civil War. But because of my grandpa, I got to meet him. I was 3 years old when he died, and when I hear stories about him, he had to go to war because it was compulsory before. So when you get to listen to the stories of what my mom tells me, what he did, or what he went through throughout that time, um, it's interesting, and you get to learn a lot of things, crazy stories actually, that you would never imagine, with COVID, and you're like, wow, we're in this point of history. Um, it's what will, I don't know, my grandchildren say to me when I'm old. So I feel it's like the same thing, but in the past,
Yeah.
with the war and everything. So those 2 points of history are the ones that I really liked
It's
in a
really
in a
it's really interesting that you referred, especially the first one, because I just finished the last video I've made with Jiashi from China, talking about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, exactly, just precisely about it. Like that, there is a big history from the past, and that different cultures that met and clashed sometimes, and how we should remember what happened, but instead of creating bad relationships because of it, we should learn from it and create new relationships and better relationships. That was precisely the way we finished the last video. It was a good message, and it's
Yeah.
really funny that you referred it, because it was just that I was talking a little bit about the Portuguese history, which has some similarities in different countries, but it's the same in the end. Portugal and Spain arrived there, wanted to colonize, and did a lot of bad things because of it.
Yeah.
And there is these people are resent. I think it's the word is resented. I don't know. I'm not sure. But people still remember with some anger that we did that. And I was saying that first of all, we are different people. Like our ancestors were our ancestors and did that to your ancestors, not specifically to you as well. So I don't think I'm guilty of anything. I have a completely different mindset from what they had at the time. I'm not the same person as they were. And even though those things existed, of course, we should learn from it and try to behave differently if we don't agree. Not to be constantly remembering the past and just hating each other because something that happened 500 years ago. It doesn't make sense.
It
Uh,
doesn't.
yeah,
And in the end, it's history. You
yeah.
know, everything happened through the. I mean, if that event wouldn't have occurred, then what? You
Yeah,
know?
in the end, we learn from the mistakes we've made, but also great things were made. Like discovering America was a big achievement for humanity. Like, of course, America existed, and the the locals who lived there knew that America existed, but they didn't know of Europe, and the Europeans didn't know of America. So it was really important that happened. Unfortunately, the people at that time behaved differently than we behave today. But it's like we can make an analogy to our own lives. Like the person we are now is the result of everything that happened in our past, good or bad. And so we can look at the bad things that happen and feel like feeling some anger about what happened, feeling sad, feeling like I would wish I didn't acted this way, or I wish I knew what I know today. But we only are in the position we are today because we've lived that. Not we don't arrive here from nowhere, and we can say the same thing about history. Like the place we are now is a result of what happened. We can make things differently and better, but we only arrived here because of what happened there. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was
it
fun
is.
that you reached that point.
But it is true. It is true.
Yeah.
It's
He was telling me a story about a Japanese guy he met, and the Japanese guy was in China and was afraid of telling that he was from Japan because of the
really.
World War II clash they had between them, and he was like not sure if he should say he was from Japan because he was afraid of the reaction people would have. But in the end, they friendly interact, discuss history, both sides of history, that people at each country hate war and they didn't like what happened, not in China, not in Japan. So, and he was saying that in China today, people still remember what happened, but they try to have a different approach. Like you said, a really interesting thing. They say that you should have fire in your heart and water in your mouth. So remember what happened, but treat others with respect and to be kind to them. So it was interesting to. It was the same thing, but more in the modern warfare scene.
I mean, one thing I love about that culture, about the Japanese, Chinese culture, is that sense of respect for each other, for and
Mm-hmm.
for others. You know, I feel that's amazing. It's very. I would love to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, of course, I'm respectful and everything,
Yeah,
but there's their sense of respect. It's amazing. I mean,
yeah.
I
I've read. Yeah, you can say
I
so.
think I'm like a big fan of their sense of respect.
I've read a book more or less recently. It was like 1 year ago or 2 years ago. It was recently, not I don't know how to precise the time. But it was really interesting because he told the part of the story was in Portugal, but also part of the story was in Russia, in China, and in Japan in the beginning of the 20th century. And I don't know if their culture is still totally like that because things evolve with the years, of course. But I could absorb the book was really good. You should have made a really big research about the topic,
Hmm.
the writer, and I could absorb a good portion of their culture and of why they behave the way they behave, what are their values, and why they behave the way they behave. And it was really interesting because I could compare with the way we think in Europe
Yeah,
and in the West, more Western world. And it is really interesting. Like we have a really sense of individuality and sense pursue your goals, your dreams to be happy, And of
Yeah.
course, to do that with a family environment around you, we also have values towards family, and we also have values to respect others, of course. And we are getting better and better at that, I believe. So we are
Yeah.
really aware of what we did wrong in the past and where do we want to go. So that's really good. That's really really good.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, through that book, I've learned a bit of the way they think, and it's really interesting. They have really strong values towards family, and in Japan as well towards the society as well. But I liked some things, but other things I dislike. Like at least at that time. Now it may be different. Like I said,
Yeah.
it was almost like, in some sense, some things were like a prison. Like you couldn't behave differently. You had to behave like that because it was the way the society and your family expected.
Yeah.
And that feels a little bit not too much freedom. And so I like some things, but there are things that should be made better, I think. And now maybe they are. I don't know how it is today. I haven't gone there.
I think it's getting better, but they still have that sense of you have to do what your family is telling you to do, or you have to be this way or that way.
Yeah.
I they're, yeah, they're still kind of the same.
Yeah.
I remember when I went to China, I didn't say it before, but I lived there like for 3 months, if
Mm-hmm.
that's considered in a place. And I remember one story that and it was at the beginning of the first week of being there, and and a guy, he told me, like, of my salary, I give 20% of my salary to my parents every month.
Yeah.
And I like, why do you do that? I mean, you're 40 years old, you have your job, your parents, uh, you're independent from your parents. Why would you give 20% of your salary each month? And he was like, my parents gave everything for me. They gave everything for me, and they also gave me an education. They gave me my values. They gave me everything, and now this is my way of saying thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, it's amazing how you want to thank your parents back, and one way of doing that is by giving them something that you have, that it can help them,
Mm-hmm.
which is money. Of course, love and everything, that's always there, but he was saying thank you in that way, like to compensate for everything that they've done for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was quite interesting, and I didn't ask other people if they did it too. But I think it's a nice way of what you said, of that family values, and appreciating what they've done for you, which is something that, of course, we would never do, especially in Spain. If we had to give 20% of our salary to our
Yeah.
parents, all be broke. but but it was interesting. I really liked it.
Yeah.
But as you said, there are other sides of their culture that I have to disagree.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to learn. That's why it's so interesting to learn about different cultures. Is that you can learn, have a think about it of what you've learned, and maybe incorporate the good things they teach you, and not so the things that you don't identify so much. But because in the end, there's not a right way to behave. There's culture, and you just do what you identify the most with. I believe it's normal to identify more with the culture where you were born, because it's like I've heard a really interesting story that is like a guy that comes, I don't know if it comes from China or Japan, and goes to America for an interview at university, and someone
Yeah.
asked something he learned or found curious about America, and he said that they had really strange eyes. So
Really.
so it's really fun, because the concept of normal, it depends a lot from where you lived in. So I would say that you should it's normal that you identify more with the
Oh,
culture
the
of the place you are from, or you were more exposed, but that doesn't mean that you don't identify as well with parts or different cultures. So that's why it's so interesting to learn and to get a bit from everywhere,
Yeah, true.
and to see that our culture isn't perfect as well. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is not.
So it's interesting. So maybe it was fun that we already started talking about different countries. So maybe I will give you a challenge. That is to, because we haven't talked so much about Spain as well. So I would give you a challenge that is to talk about one, two, or three things as you wish of parts of Spain's culture that you would like people to know or think it's interesting, and maybe as a challenge to oppose that as cultural clashes or different things that you've seen in other countries. I don't know, something like that. What you say? Maybe it's a difficult
Wow.
question. Maybe you start with Spain's culture and then move on. I don't know.
You know?
Make it simplify it. Divide the complex task in small tasks simpler.
Okay, I have one example, but it's like the most obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say first. Well, I think the first thing we have here in Spain, and it's funny because I watched the other day the Argentinia's video,
Mm-hmm.
which I loved, by the way, and
Rodrigo is a
he
really
talked,
good guy.
yeah. So he talked about football in
Yeah.
his country, and I was thinking that not to the stream of Argentinians because Argentinians with football go crazy,
Yeah.
but and we have also that culture of football, because you know La Liga, it's worldwide. Everyone loves La Liga. Um, you know, when you go to a country, they're like Barca or Real Madrid.
Yeah.
First question they ask you, and you're like, okay. So you get to start a conversation from there.
Yeah.
So it's a very I mean, we love football, and everyone loves their events. We have won like the time when we won the Eurocopa, then the World Cup, and then again the
Yeah.
Euro Cup. Like wow, everyone was. We love football. We
Yeah.
would go to a match just to see it. You know. Um, so we're very identified with that. The good thing is that, for example, there are games in which they're friendly. I mean, we don't get that much aggressive. There are others in which you know El Clásico, it's like a clash between everyone, but we're not very aggressive to say so.
Mm-hmm.
We don't drink alcohol at stadiums, so um,
It's forbidden, or you just not culturally don't are not into it.
I forbidden. I
Okay.
mean, not very well seen. You know, if
Yeah.
you because you're like when you get alcohol and you're like you get
Yeah. Yeah.
super aggressive. You know, it's not a good thing to do. Um, so
Rodrigo said an interesting thing about it. Like, I think they can drink, but they choose not to, so they can be focused in the game. So you can see how much they love it. Yeah.
they love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we can here. I mean, I went to I like football, so I go to matches and everything. But I've never seen people drinking at a game, so I don't know if it's forbidden or not. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's forbidden, but I wouldn't place you know my hand on
Yeah. Yeah.
fire.
Yeah. I understand.
But it's so we get this culture of football and everything. And then when I lived in Panama, they also have like this culture of football. They're crazy about football, but they don't have good teams.
Yeah.
They're very all the culture of football. They have like a culture of football from Spain. They love watching Spanish games. But when they do have games which are like international,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's super fun, but it's crazy because they don't stop drinking. They are with their beer all the time on their hand,
Yeah.
all the time. Then when, for example, a team, for example, when Panama scores, they would go with the beer, throw it to the air.
It rains.
Doesn't matter where it falls. Then they have toilet paper, so they throw the toilet paper at the whole stadium. So it's like, what is going on? You know, you
Yeah.
get like,
A
what is
totally different approach.
totally different. And the first time I went there, I was like, what is this? You know, I went out and I was like, oh, with beer. Then I had toilet paper as well. And I was like, it's so different, so different. Like
Yeah.
the way they live football here and the way we live football in Spain.
Yeah.
And so that's one, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think. Yeah. Definitely. It's a clear difference. Yeah.
Then what can be another?
When
Well,
can
something that
explain? Yeah, sorry, you were saying something.
no, that something that's very cultural here and that I personally love is all these events we have in Seville, which is we call it La Feria de Abril,
See?
which is
Yes.
basically on April. You know what it is? Have you ever heard of it?
Uh, in Sevilla.
Yeah. So it's
Uh,
not. It's a
I'm not
week.
sure. I'm not sure.
So
I
it's
don't
like
think
10.
so.
It's 10 days in which they celebrate. I don't know what they celebrate, but they celebrate,
Yeah.
and they go dressed like with flamenco with their dresses, and
Yeah.
everyone's on the horses, you know, and we dance flamenco or so. It's an amazing week. Everyone here in Spain knows it, and there's people that hate La Feria de Abril, but there's others that that love it. I personally love it, and it's I think everyone in the world that likes flamenco or that likes this part of culture should come here in that point of time
Mm-hmm.
to see it because
Yeah.
you would never see something similar to it.
You say
And
you say it's
sorry,
10 days and it's in Sevilla. So
yeah,
the whole Spain comes to Sevilla in that moment.
well,
People
not
from
all,
all
but
around.
yeah, we do. In fact, people from Seville that live there and that have been going to La Feria de Abril ever since they were little kids. There's a weekend in which they don't go to La Feria because everyone from outside Seville go there, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, this people from outside are coming to our land, and they stay home
Yeah.
because it's so full and everyone's tourist. Like
Yeah.
even if you're from a tourist there, so they stay at home and they're like,
Too
I'm not
much
going.
people. I'm not going there.
Yeah, yeah. I, I swear, and it's normally it's the weekend in which in Spain normally the Friday that I mean, for example, I don't know how to in it's between April and end of April and beginning of May.
Mm-hmm.
So the first May is a holiday here. So I think in the world.
Yeah.
So
At least in
that
Portugal it is also.
every day, no, or no? Is it?
I'm not sure if it's everywhere. It shouldn't be because I'm sure there are countries that don't celebrate the 1st of May at least as an holiday. But yeah, it should be in many countries. I'm not sure.
Well, in Spain it is.
Yeah,
so
exactly. That's what matters now. Yeah.
so that weekend is normally the one in which everyone from Spain go down to Seville and enjoy it. And if I can compare it to anything, I can't. I mean, I never seen something similar to it
Yeah,
in
it's
any of the.
something really typical or really Spanish. Like each country has its own celebration. Like this is just in this country that doesn't happen anywhere else. So I think it will be an example. Sorry?
It's unique. It's unique,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like and yeah, I never seen something like it like anywhere.
I have a curiosity I would like to ask you.
Yeah,
And Spanish, uh, Spain is really known for this. I think worldwide. That is La Siesta.
I
And
knew it.
I'm really curious. No, the reason I'm bringing this is I'm curious to ask you if that's still a thing. Do people still sleep La Siesta?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Because
I was gonna tell.
I wasn't sure if that was still a thing. Because in
It
the
is.
modern enterprises and companies, I wasn't sure if they would still do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting better. Before, when I was a small kid, I mean, everything would stop from 2 to 4. Everything. I remember I went home to have lunch or whatever. It was from 2 to 4. My dad could come home from 2 to 4 to have lunch or have siesta. Then
Mm-hmm.
all the small shops, even the big shops stopped from 2 to 4. So it was like, okay, you can't do anything at that time.
Yeah, just to
Um,
clarify for people that don't know what we are talking about, La Siesta is like uh, a period of time in the beginning of the afternoon where people would go to sleep for 1 hour, I think, something like that.
Yeah,
and to rest a bit before starting the afternoon. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So nowadays it's getting better because especially after 2008 with all these the economic
Yeah.
crisis, people wouldn't stop from 2 to 4 because that would mean losing money.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays there are shops that open from 2 to 4. Uh, Now the breaks for having lunch are not that 2 hours break to have lunch. Um, but for example, I still do la siesta. Like I come home after working and I go to sleep for half an hour, 1 hour, and then continue with my day.
Yeah.
And I know people that do it. But it's getting better. But it's quite funny because I was gonna say that um, at one point of this conversation is that we have a stereotype when we go outside and they say like, "Oh, la siesta,"
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh, it sounds like we are how do you say this vagos, lazy, like
Yeah.
we're lazy." And it does sound like that way,
Yeah,
because it's
it does. But
all the day.
it's just a stereotype, like you said.
Yeah,
At least people don't picture you using sombreros like maybe they do with the Mexican, or there are stereotypes of all kinds. So yeah, but I can imagine that I can imagine can be a bad stereotype because people associate laziness with it, which is not necessarily true. Like if you even if you rest in that time but you are productive the rest of the time, maybe that's even a good thing. It's just a different approach of it, I think.
it is
Yeah.
like I don't have energy when I come home after working because I wake up early and we tend to sleep late at night.
Mm-hmm.
uh, all the shows here in Spain, they start maybe at 10:30 at night,
Yeah.
and between commercials and that it's 1 hour long or 1 hour and a half, whatever. You go to sleep at 1:30. Um, so and then you wake up at 6. You only get like 5 hours sleep. So when I come home, I'm like extremely tired.
Yeah.
So I sleep for half an hour, 1 hour, and then I have the rest of the day for doing things.
Yeah.
So is that we have a very weird like time. Uh, I mean, how do you say this? A schedule during the day. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
different from everyone.
Yeah, it's just a way of planning the day exactly. And I would say that not during winter, but during summer, for example in Madrid, which is really hot, it's also good as well to take that time to sleep because you can't be on the streets at least. Maybe you can work, of course, inside buildings, but on the street it's really difficult to be at those hours because it's really hot. So you can't do much as well. So it's like
Yeah, and during summertime, uh, it's nighttime at around 10:30, 11 at night.
yeah,
You have so much day to do things that you're like, okay, I need a rest.
exactly.
So yeah, but it's funny the siesta.
Yeah, I understand. Another thing that you are, I think you Spain is known for, is how much you like to be in cafes and bars outside, especially having drinks with friends and eating some meal together.
Mm.
Would you like to tell a little bit about it to the people who are not familiar with it, or
Yeah.
how different is the mindset from other countries we don't do that much?
Yeah.
Why
So
do you like so much to do it, for example?
I think it's how can I explain? It's a moment of the day in which you're happy. you know,
Yeah.
uh, you're drinking or whatever. Because for example, I'm not a big fan of drinking, and
Mm-hmm.
but it's a moment in which you're with your friends. You can talk to strangers, and everyone's very nice to you, and you get conversation from everyone. I have friends who go to bars only to speak to the barman. Like what's
Yeah.
you're like okay. So it's I don't know. Maybe it's like a relief. I think in a way. For example, um, it was one of my fears to say when they started saying about COVID and that we had to stay home. And it was like, wow, this is going to be hard because people love being on the streets.
Yeah.
It's the thing. People go home from work and if they don't sleep siesta, they go to a bar. to be with their friends or to and there's I have, for example, my brother, he goes to a bar at whatever time and he doesn't talk to any of his friends, but he
Mhm.
knows he's gonna meet someone. Like if he goes there, there's gonna be someone.
Yeah.
So it's like that if you want to get out and be out of your house, be out of, I don't know, relief, you go there and you socialize. You can have a beer, you can have two, or you can have none. But you're gonna have a good time,
It's a
and
moment.
it is
It's a moment where you interact with the community and just enjoy the human beings around you, basically.
exactly. And for example, from my side, it's a thing that I love. I love it, and I've lived in, as I said before, in Panama and Costa Rica, and they don't have that culture at all. Like
Yeah.
not in the world. You will say, "Let's go get a beer," and then we'll be like, "What?" Like
Yeah.
no. Um, so it's something that when you're growing up, I missed. Like I saw my friends here in Spain, like, "Oh, let's go get a beer," or whatever, or I saw pictures in Facebook or whatever of them um, having a beer at a terrace, and I was like, I'm here at home doing nothing because people don't have that culture here.
Hmm.
So it
You
was
missed it a bit.
yeah. And then when I came to Spain, I'm like, I'm not leaving. I'm
Yeah.
staying here.
One thing,
No, but
I've had a similar thing, not so much with interacting with people on bars or stuff, but I remember the first. So when you miss something very much because you are outside in another country,
yeah,
when you come, at least for me, it was like that. When you come, the first 2 weeks you just want to do that and enjoy a bit to remember how it was. It happened to me with the sun. I was in the Netherlands, and the sun there is so much weaker. Like you feel the warmth, but it's not even close to the same thing. So when I came here, I just dreamt with the moment. Normally here in the spring, there are really good afternoons with the really
yeah,
good sun in the springs. So it's which you can already imagine summer and it's getting closer. So it's
yeah.
really good in the beginning of the afternoon to sit and catch a bit of sun in your face. And I missed it a lot in the Netherlands, and I catched a lot of sun when I came back to Portugal because I missed it. So I can imagine you did the same with the time with your friends on bars, having missed it so much. And when you came back, oh, I'm here, let's go.
And it's something that's happening right now. After having been 3 months at home, now everyone's like, okay, let's go to a bar or let's get together or whatever. And we have a maximum of 10 people per table when we go to a bar or whatever, and we're getting together all the time. I mean, every afternoon I have a message like, we're going to this bar. But we went into ever since we can go to bars, I've been doing something every day
Hmm.
because we miss it so much that now it's like, please let me go to a bar, please let me have a beer. and
Yeah.
and you see all this when the COVID started, all these memes. I don't know how
Hmm.
you say it in English.
Yeah, in English I
Um,
think it's memes, yeah.
memes, right? About beers, about when can we go to a bar. It was it was super fun because you could tell that everyone was desperate to go outside.
Yeah.
So everything was around that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. Maybe going a little bit more, we have already talked a bit, but to other countries. Which countries, you've talked a little bit about some countries you've been on. I don't know if there are still some countries missing. And yeah, just tell us a bit of what you like the most about visiting those countries and maybe give an example of one or two countries you've been on and what you like the most about them. I don't know.
But that I lived on or that I've been visiting.
What do you prefer, I would say? You're the
Okay,
captain.
I'm the captain of the boat. So one country that, and I spoke to it about it before. Um, One country that I was very afraid of going because I thought I wasn't gonna like it. One country that I had a lot of the stereotypes on was China.
Yeah.
And when I went there and I lived there for almost 3 months, I came back and I was like, I love China. Like I had so many things in my mind before going that when I went there, I was like, what were you thinking? I
Yeah.
mean, what with your head? And and I loved the country. I mean, everyone that has the opportunity to go there should go. There's, as we mentioned before, there's many cultural things that are like a shock
Mm-hmm.
to people that come from other countries. But you learn so much. There's so many great places that you have to visit. Um, there's so much different cultures in one country, and it's an amazing place. It's an amazing place. If I have the opportunity, I would love to go there again, live there, work there for a couple of years or whatever. It's something that I'm looking forward to, and I would like to be there, to be in that country at one point in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one, and seriously, if you have the opportunity, go, because it's amazing. And
It's funny what you
then
said about the picture you had in your mind about the country and how it would be to live there, and how much it is different from actually living there.
yeah,
I think that happens a lot, and because we haven't gone there, and we as humans construct this image of the country, and we construct it from what we hear, and so we hear from people that maybe never been there, or just fragments of the experience they had. So it's completely different from living there. But one thing I find funny is that we are born and we grow up in a place, like randomly, like we could have been born anywhere on earth. We just happen to be born here. But we
yeah,
sometimes, about some countries, we think, because they are so culturally different and like that, we think, oh my god, like fearful of what it would be to have grew up in that environment. But we just happen to be born here, but we could have happened to be born there. Actually, the probabilities are more on the other side, because they are more. But that's just a probability game. But yeah, it's just like that. So if we would be, if we would have been born there, we would maybe think fearfully of living here, not there. It's just a matter of where you grew up and what you find normal and what you've experienced, because we as humans tend to be afraid of what we don't know,
yeah,
and it can limit us a lot, of course. But so it's nice as well to break those patterns and to actually go there and experience that. If you don't like, that's okay, but at least you experience it yourself. And another thing, I'm saying this, but because we've had an experience, we shouldn't generalize to everything. Like, if I happen to go to China, imagine, and I have a bad experience, I don't think it's fair to generalize and say China is awful, I had this really bad experience, I don't like it. It was an experience. Maybe I would have more if I would have stayed longer, and good ones. It's relative.
yeah.
Sorry, but yeah, you
No,
can.
you're right. You're totally right.
But
It's
you were
it.
saying, sorry. Yeah.
No, no. That one thing that happened to me is exactly what you're saying. When I lived in the UK, I wanted to study there my degree,
Mm-hmm.
so I went there to a place that's called Newcastle, which is up in the north. And my roommates, we were five, and my four of my roommates were all Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And the experience that I had with them wasn't very good, actually. So that's one of the things that got stuck in my head, and I was like, I don't like China. I mean, how can I like China if my experience with these four girls has
I don't
been
like Chinese. I've met four Chinese. I don't like Chinese people. Like, they are millions, but if I don't like four, I don't like anyone.
anyone. I was like, I don't like the Great Wall. I don't like Shanghai. I don't like anything. But it's but what you said, it's like this image you get into your head, and then when I went there, I was like, I've been wrong this whole time. And I met people that were Chinese, and they were extremely nice. Of course, you met someone, or you meet two or three that weren't. But as in Spain, you come to Spain, and
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Exactly. Yeah.
you have people that are extremely nice, and then there are others that are like, okay, but
One thing
it's
I've
the
come
same.
to learn is that we tend to put the us versus them, and in many situations, not in just in countries, but in football clubs, like you said, or in political parties, whatever. We tend to do the us versus them, and like, we are right, they are wrong. And I've come to learn that there are good and bad people everywhere. There are good
Yeah.
and bad people in your country. There are good and bad people in the other country. There are good and bad people, supporters of your football club. There are good and bad people, supporters of your rival football club. There are good and bad people from your political party, etc. You can generalize, yeah.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it is totally true. It's I wouldn't have said it better, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I can tell you that one place where I want to live, it's Portugal. I mean,
Portugal,
I
yeah.
yeah, it is one of the countries. For example, you know, when you go to a country and you feel this vibe,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so this country is pretty, it's wow, but then you're like, will you live here? And you're like, maybe not.
Yeah.
With Portugal, it was like I arrived into Portugal the first time to Lisbon, second time to Porto, whatever, and I was like, this country, this vibe, like I've never had it in other countries in Europe, only
Mm-hmm.
there. Wow,
And what
I
vibe is
want
it? What? How would you describe it?
the vibe that I feel.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you feel
it,
different?
it's it's like the vibe I feel here in Spain. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, go there and everyone. Well, for example, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's really nice. Uh, they're like happy. You also like to be like outside your house. I mean, walking or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or a coffee. Um, then I don't know the place. You can tell, for example, Porto and Lisbon. They're like all cities, but they're not. I mean, the buildings, they're old, but they're not at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk in, you can feel like a good mood. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you feel in the air. And then it's a country which is also close to Spain, and it's in the same, you know, in the same how to say,
Yeah.
in the same.
Peninsula.
Um, so the climate is very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So then, you know, that's something that it's quite important for me to live
Yeah.
in country. So yeah, it's like this a similar vibe
Yeah.
to the one I feel here. So that's why it's a country that if I, as well, if I have an opportunity, I will go there for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's in fact it's really similar. Everything, like the culture, the language, everything. Yeah, we were always so close. And I think I wasn't sure if I would like to bring this to, but I think maybe I should. Is that we've been talking in the past, like how people like when you talked about Christopher Columbus and how he went to America and there's this anger between people. The relationship between Portugal and Spain in the past was turbulent, like
Yeah.
because people were fighting for the terrain basically, and it's normal. At the time was normal, of course. Now think differently, and
But
right now we have this friendly relationship, and like maybe it would be a good example to other countries in the world that are not are still fighting for these borders and terrains. And one thing I find this is this will be totally controversial maybe, but for example, I just have this feeling inside of me because I'm really intercultural and international in the way I think. Um, because I usually say that the borders were created by people, so it's stupid
yes,
to fight for borders. And one thing, there's this really heavily conflict for years and maybe centuries between Israel and Palestine because for the holy city that they both want. And I just think, why don't you share the city? Like, there can be churches and there can be, I'm missing the word, sorry,
isn't it?
the Islamic church, sorry?
No, no, I was gonna say mosque, but
Yeah,
it's not.
mosques, exactly. And there can be churches and mosques in the same city. Just interact and peacefully and enjoy you both the city. I have all time this feeling, and I think Portugal and Spain are a great example of it. We just learn to interact peacefully because it's much
Yeah,
better like this.
yes, yes, it is true. We're gonna do one you know, one of these videos which is gonna be Spain meets Portugal.
Okay,
So we can So you can tell us about the Portuguese culture as well.
Yeah, it would be fun. It would be fun. If you want to start a franchise, we can talk about it.
Imagine.
No, just kidding. But yeah, yeah, that's something I feel exactly.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
you're
we
right.
are with 55 minutes of video, so we are. I think we are coming to the end more or less. So maybe I don't know. I would ask you still one or two questions before you make like a final message to the people watching.
Okay.
Um, what like you said you talked a little bit about your interests and your hobbies and your work. Tell me something you have in your mind to do in the future, like a dream, an ambition, a goal that you have.
Okay, I have a very clear goal. The
Yeah.
thing is how I'm gonna get
Okay.
it. uh, that's a question. No, like my goal in the future,
Mhm.
something that I want to.
Yeah. Really, this is more or less a personal question. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have this thing in mind, but it's very difficult to get. But I hope I can do it in the future. Ever since I studied aerospace engineering,
Mhm.
which is everything. Well, and I was specialized in aircraft. So basically, it's all airplanes. So ever since I was in my second year of the degree, which was in 2016, so 4 years ago, I started with this idea about an airline. So basically, I cannot say the whole thing, because it's confidential.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But but it's the idea of an airline. So basically, I started doing works for different. How do you say this? Um, Asignatura. So for different classes,
Courses. Yeah.
yeah, for different courses. So we had to do different, I don't know, different things. So I always went through my airline, like I did things for my airline, did things for my airline. At the end of the end of my degree, I had a very clear idea of how my airline was going to be. I did my final year project on that airline, and then I went into a master's degree in order to understand better about business and get um, that part of business, of economics, that I didn't
Mhm.
have with any degree.
Yeah.
So I did things with my airline. I started building up like a business plan or whatever, and I did my final master's project also on that airline. So basically, I came up with a business plan with a very clear idea of what I want to do, and it is something that I would love to do in the future, or maybe to explain the idea to someone, see if they think it's a good idea. If it's not, um, talk to them and see if we can do something.
But do you
If
want to start your own airline or to manage an existing airline?
I would love to do my idea, but it's
Mhm.
you need lots of money.
Yeah. Of course.
So be a good idea, for example, to go into a group of airlines. I don't know, maybe I don't know if you know it, but IAG, it's called IAG,
Mhm.
with the Iberia, British Airways,
Mhm.
um, like this group of companies of airlines. So it would be interesting to tell them the idea and see how they see if this is feasible or not.
Yeah.
They opened a new one a few years ago, 2 years ago, I think, which is a low cost airline called Level. So maybe you know see what happens. But
It's
again,
a seems a
it's
really
like a dream.
interesting project.
Yeah, but it's a crazy dream.
Yeah.
It's very ambicioso.
Ambitious.
Yeah, I'm like losing my English.
No. No problem. No
Um,
problem.
so that's like my main goal, and I would love to do it.
Yeah.
But it's a big goal, so
Yeah.
step by
Nice.
step.
It's nice to have a dream, and maybe if you work your way towards it, maybe you could achieve it. We never know. We never know. Really.
You never know.
Maybe I should. Maybe after this, I would share with you a book in which, at least a part of the book in which he talks. The writer talks about the way they. I don't. They didn't create a new airline. They redesigned the airline to try to, yeah, to have better results and to be have a better service for the customers. So it was a nice example. Maybe you would like to read about it. After the video, maybe I will send you and look for the chapter in which it appears. I think you would like to
Okay.
read it. It's interesting,
Yeah.
at least.
To do with airline, you can tell me.
The next question I would like to ask you is, how does this dream, or if does this dream, or how does this dream, how is this dream part of your life purpose?
In what sense? I mean,
Like, I imagine you can create it. We all create it for ourselves, more or less. Maybe not, don't have a specific one. Some people do, but create like a life purpose or something we want to give to the world, or we want to, like a narrative we create for ourselves, or you understand what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
And I was curious how, if you have one, and how does this dream be part of that, or in what way does this dream help you pursuing your life purpose?
Well, actually, the airline is basically what I want. My life purpose, you know.
I will
I
give you
mean,
an example. Like, if you believe, oh, I'm really passionate about people meeting other cultures. So by doing an airline, I'm bringing people together. So I'm helping it. For example, I was.
yeah, it's the airline it's based on looking, for example, at the customer needs,
Mm-hmm.
not at, for example, my needs or anyone's needs.
Exactly.
Uh, I started doing it because when I went to, I mean, since I lived in my dad used to live in Panama up until last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Panama some of like at least once per year in order to see him. So I remember that every time I went into the airplane, the seats were getting smaller,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm small, you know, my legs don't go into the next person's
Mm-hmm.
seat. But I watched people that were so uncomfortable for 12 hours. And I was like, man, we have to do something. Like, this cannot happen.
Yeah.
So the idea of the airline was born from there, from making the passenger be comfortable when flying. I mean, when you're flying, you want to enjoy. I mean, you go to a country and you know that flying is part of your trip.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you have a 14-hour flight. You're like, oh damn, I have a 14-hour flight. So I don't want people to feel that way. That way, I want people to feel like,
Oh,
wow,
I'm
I'm
having
going
a
to
14-hour flight.
like I'm going to
Yeah.
a place. I want to enjoy the whole thing. And flying is part of that experience. So I want that experience to be great.
Yeah.
Because how many uh, a person has come from, I don't know, maybe Argentina or whatever, and they're like, the first question they ask is how was your trip?
Yeah.
So I want people to say like my trip, my flight was great.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So it was a thing, and it's a thing I have all the time in my head because I think it's super important for that flying experience to be part of your whole experience. So,
Yeah. It was something
so
that
that's
came from your personal experience, like something you
exactly,
felt through your
yeah.
personal experience, and I imagine it conjugates with your passion for planes that I imagine you have since you pursued aerospace
Or
engineering. Yeah.
yeah, it is exactly that. And the thing of having this airline can that makes the passenger being more comfortable at a low, well, it's basically between comfort and price,
Yeah.
and I don't want people you can have extremely bad experiences with airlines, and you would think that it was the worst trip just because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you get an airplane which is old or whatever, and you have a 2-hour flight, and you will remember that 2-hour flight,
Yeah.
not the experience you had at that place.
Mm-hmm.
Shame that things get that you don't have that much of a good time or that good experience just because of one flight.
Yeah.
And not nowadays that we have all this technology and that flights can be extremely comfortable, but
Yeah.
you know.
I will give you an idea, $1 million idea. No, it isn't. It's just something funny that came to my mind. If you want to make your flights fun, just be the first company in the world of people transportation through flight that does loops on the plane. Like
Yeah.
that would be unique,
Imagine.
a new market experience.
I
No
want to
one
have
else
fun.
does this. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was your flight? Terrific! I've never lived something like that. It was the most exciting part of my whole trip.
If I would have been in that plane, like doing loops, poof, I hit all these amusement parks and everything. So I would be like, oh my god, that was the worst experience of my life.
I almost died, but I survived and I'm happy and thrilled.
You would never forget it. That's for sure. You
Yeah,
know.
it would be remarkable, yeah. Um, I really enjoyed our time here. It was great. And it was really nice to chat with you, and I like to meet you very much. Thanks for Bruno to have invite you. So
Yeah.
it was really nice of him as well. And just to finish, I would just say, if you want to leave a final message to people watching about anything that comes to your mind, it's the time to do it.
All right. Well, first, thank you because I had a great time, and time
Thanks.
passed fly. It's been like a very short hour. Um, and well, one message that I can give to people, we talked a bit about Spain, about our culture, and I know Spain is one of the most visited countries in the world, and it's because of something. You know, we have a very good, we have, and it's I have very like a national pride,
Yeah,
but at other places around the world. So I think I have a good, how do you say, a good
yeah, an
opinion.
equilibrium.
Like
Yeah,
I
and
can say
I
this.
feel a little bit like that as well. I'm really passionate about my country. I love it, the language, the country, the features of the country, the people, everything.
Yeah,
But I still love to meet new countries, and I'm not nationalist minded. I don't want to say bad things about anyone, but like because you can respect other people and still love your country. So it's like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah. So the thing is that yeah, here in Spain we have very good things, culture. We have many different places in which you can go and have different types of things to do. You know, we have beaches, we have Madrid, which is a very cultural place. Then we have the north, which is all green and stuff. So there's many things to do. We like to receive tourists, and we're very open minded about that. And and so yeah, you can come visit Spain if you have an opportunity to live here. You will have a great time, that's for sure. And and yeah, my message is come to Spain, welcome to Spain,
Enjoy your time.
and have, yeah, have
Yeah.
have fun, and that you're gonna have it for sure.
Yeah, but just to complete the idea I was saying before, is like it's wonderful to love your country and to love your neighborhood, where you grew up, whatever. As long as you not only the way to respect other countries is not. I think it's to not put rankings like my country is better than yours. I think that's the limit in which everything ends. If we
Yeah,
just put everything on the same level and say I love this, I've lived this and I love this, but that doesn't mean yours is bad. It's just different. I think
yeah,
that's the line that makes everything healthy and more
yeah, yeah.
enjoyable.
I mean, yeah, I've lived in other countries, and I want to live in other countries. I don't want to stay here in Spain my whole life, because I'm, like I say, I'm the citizen of the world,
Yeah,
and and it's exactly that. I mean, I love Spain, but it is true that there are many places around the world which are amazing, and and they're probably much better than Spain, or not, or as you said, they're all the same, and and yeah, don't be close-minded
yeah,
about your country, because there's many things to discover. There's many other countries around the world that should be visited, and, and that we should get to know.
yeah. I was saying this because sometimes we see people, even inside. I was thinking, for example, inside the country, there are and even sometimes in some local zones in the country, like some small regions, there can be rivalries between people from different cities because they like to compare each other and my city is better. And I think that's where the healthy relationship ends. Like if they learn to love their city but still respect the other and say, okay, I love my city more, but yours is great as well. It's just different. I just love my city more because I've lived here and I had really good moments here. So,
We have
or I identify more with my city. But if you identify more with your city, it's okay. It's just different. We are all different. So I think
yeah.
that was I was trying to say.
No, yeah, we have that rivalry here in Spain. So
Yeah,
it's a bad thing. It generates a lot of conflict that we don't need. I mean,
exactly.
uh, I'm getting again into something that maybe I shouldn't, but between Barcelona and Madrid, there's very like a huge conflict, which it is not necessary. I mean, I have conversations with people from Barcelona, and they attack you for being from here, and you're like,
Yeah,
what's going on? I mean, I'm not saying anything. I'm just here having a coffee with you, and I don't want to discuss about politics, about borders. I
exactly.
mean, we're from one country. We're not even from one country. You can say you're from the world. That's it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But we don't need to have discussions on this because it's nonsense.
Yeah.
So
And you can
yes,
find conflicts wherever you want. Like you were saying about Madrid and Barcelona here in Portugal. We have, I think it's different because Barcelona has a special trait because it's, I don't want to talk too much about it, but in Catalonia and there's some friction, I would say. But differently, we have something similar here between Porto and Lisbon. There's some rivalry,
yeah,
which I don't agree with, but okay. Because because of what we were talking, it's just because of that I respect the people, but it's just like that. But
yeah,
it can happen the same. Like I live in a small, really small city. For what is the concept of a city, I can call it a town. I would say that the better description in English would be a town. But even in our small environment, people, not so much today, but in the past, people still found rivalries with local villages like some kilometers away. Like if you want to find conflict, you will find it.
yeah,
It's just a matter of mindset and perspective. So
yes,
and I think today
but
people are getting better at it, but I still think there's work to do in that sense.
yeah. Maybe in 500 years, like happened with Columbus,
Yeah,
it gets
exactly.
better.
Okay. Once again, thank you very much. Like I said, I enjoyed very much this time, and thank you for everyone who is watching. If you want to leave some messages of your experiences in Spain, curiosities about Spain, questions you might have, we can answer in the end. You can write them. And yeah, I'll see you next week with a new country, with a new guest from a new country. And it was wonderful to have you here. And goodbye.